The Solo Coach Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Solo Coach Podcast. It's great to be here, and I'm recording this episode for the first time from my new apartment in Meanwood. Today I'm here to speak with you and share the true value of working with a coach. So often I go to business networking events and I meet people and I talk about how valuable working with a coach has been for me. But I haven't yet done that on the podcast, and I thought I would do that today and go into more detail. And once again, I'm going to give you 5 specific ways in which receiving coaching as a coaching client has been so valuable for me on my journey and in my life so far. So I'm going to start by saying that I've worked with 3 coaches formally over the last 6 years and trained with a raft of them. And in training as a coach, you get lots of practice coaching each other and reciprocal coaching models. So I'll coach you and then you coach me. So I've had tons of these conversations, and almost all of them have been incredibly valuable and really a game changer for me in my life and in my journey so far. So I first encountered coaching back in about 2019 through a one-to-one developer program at the company I used to work for, and my one-to-one developer was assigned. His name was Tom, and straight away we started meeting and having conversations once a month, which were coaching conversations. And he was able to listen to me in a way that no one had ever listened to me before. So the conversation, unlike a normal conversation where you would speak back and forth about a little bit about me and what I'm working on and what my challenges are, and then change the focus back to you again, and what you're working on, what your challenges are, have some humour, talk about feelings, experiences, look for what we have in common if we've just met. A coaching conversation is slightly different in that all of that still happens, but the focus primarily remains on you as the coaching client, or in this context, the focus was on me as Tom's client. And even though Tom had only been on a 1-week training course to be a one-to-one developer, he was able to provide me with some basic coaching skills such as active listening and taking me through what's called the GROW model, which talks about what's your goal, where are you now, what's your reality, what are some of the obstacles and opportunities available to you, and what would you like to do next, what actions would you like to take away in order to get closer to achieving your goal. So even by using that very simple coaching model, we were able to get great results, and I was able to make some changes at work in my approach and what I did, how I approached the job, and how I behaved in the job in order to feel happier and more fulfilled and get better results from what I was doing for a living. Now, straight away I realised that this process is super valuable, and I wanted to speak to someone who was outside of the context of being within the organisation, as we were both employees of the same company. And I wanted an even richer experience and the opportunity to speak even more freely about how I was feeling with someone who was outside of that system. So I sought a private coach called Russell, who I've now been working with for 5 years. And straight away, there was even more value in speaking with Russell, as Russell by then had been a coach for 20 or so years, and he'd been there and done that and seen that before. No matter what I brought to the conversation, Russell was well within his comfort zone and able to handle that topic incredibly skillfully to enable me to find clarity and to get answers and to go away after every session feeling better. Now, fast forward 3 years after making some huge changes in my life, such as going on a sabbatical, going solo traveling around the world, then deciding to leave my career behind entirely and go solo traveling for a year on my own with a one-way flight from London to Auckland in New Zealand. I then started building my own coaching business, and later on it became clear to me that I wanted some additional support with a very specific part of the business, which was pitching my products on social media and pricing myself accordingly, and then having sales conversations, which was something I'd never done before, as I'd always been an employee in several different organisations. And for that specifically, I sought the services of a business coach called Brinsley. Now, I was able to work with Brinsley at the same time as Russell, as we were working on different topics, and we were all very clear of what we were working on with each other. We were all aware of each other, and we'd contracted very clearly on what we were going to work on and what we weren't going to work on, to make sure that there was no clashes or conflicts of interest. And that relationship was incredibly fruitful and very successful, and I got precisely what I wanted from it by the end of those 4 months, I believe it was 4 or 5 months, that I had 2 coaches at the same time. A life coach and a business coach was how I saw it. So since then, I'm now just working with the one coach, Russell, and my conversations with him have been phenomenal and remain absolutely transformational, and I meet with him once a month. So coming back to the podcast, that's sort of an introduction of my coaching journey as a coaching client. And I now want to move into telling you these 5 areas of how working with those 3 coaches has been so transformational and so incredibly valuable to me in my life. So number 1 is being listened to intently. So a coach is able to listen to you and hang on your every single word as you are speaking, and at the same time you have an opportunity to hear yourself think out loud. So you're getting your thoughts in order and almost talking to yourself, but someone else is present and is listening in and really listening, what we call as coaches active listening. So I'm not needing to turn the conversation away from me, and I'm able to share all of my thoughts and feelings and what's coming up for me, however good, bad or indifferent, and I'm listened to like never before. Now, what was so powerful about that was sharing that problem and hearing my coach validate my thoughts and feelings, and knowing that it's okay to feel like this and it's okay to be experiencing this, and having that realization of it's not just me who's feeling like this, it's not just me who's experienced this. And so, but that all stems from being listened to by someone who their sole purpose, their sole job in that hour session, if it's an hour session that you're doing, their sole purpose for being there is to listen to everything you're saying and to reflect back to you certain things that you've said, and to ask questions, ask insightful questions that are simple and open. So not a leading question such as, well, have you considered this? More of a, I heard you say this, that and the other. What's coming up for you when I say that? Or questions that are not trying to lead you down a specific avenue, such as, and why do you feel you're feeling like that? We're trained as coaches to avoid asking why questions, or questions that could be an and so, or questions that are trying to influence the conversation and the direction it goes. We're more trying to ask questions which are designed to provoke insight and for you to think a little differently and maybe change your perspective and zoom out from the problem a little bit, rather than staying right deeply entwined and super focused on what the problem or challenge is. So it all stems from being listened to intently. That for me has been so powerful, as I've truly 100% felt so heard in those conversations, as though there's no distractions, and not as though the conversation needs to turn back to them. And it's not selfish for the conversation topic to stay on me, because it's my time, and in 2 out of 3 of those cases I was paying for the time, so it was my time to do with it as I wish as a coaching client. Let me move on to number 2 to give you more context. So number 1 of the 5 ways in which coaching has been so valuable for me has been being listened to intently by someone whose focus was dedicated on me and nothing and no one else. Number 2 is finding out precisely how and where I'm holding myself back and what to do about it. So a coach listens very intently, and we're listening out for things like mental blockers and shoulds and classically English self-deprecation, such as playing down our own achievements in an attempt to be humble and likeable, but at massive cost and disservice to ourselves. A coach then reflects back what we said and how we said it. They pick up on what we said, or indeed what we didn't say, by reading between the lines and precisely how we said it. So very often you might be asked, maybe you might be talking about your services, and the coach might say, so what do you think of this latest, tell me about this latest service offering? And I might describe it and say, well, I'm thinking of offering some coaching, 1 hour sessions or maybe 90-minute sessions, and I'm thinking of charging 20 quid, and it's pretty good. It's not the best. There's other coaches out there that are much better, and so I don't want to overcharge. I don't want to get people's backs up, but I'm interested in providing my services, and I believe I should provide. I should ask for some money in return. I believe I'm worth something. I'm not quite sure what. And your coach might feed back, well, how much do you believe in yourself, and how much do you believe in that product? Because it sounded a little mixed to me. You went quiet, you ummed and ahed, you hesitated, and then you started off saying a price, and you started to justify why you're charging, and you were hesitant on how much you're charging, and then you were justifying why, explaining that there's better coaches out there, putting yourself down, and making yourself small as you were talking. I, as a client, might not have realised I was doing any of that. I might have thought, well, I'm coming across confidently and clearly, and I'm really likeable because I'm playing myself down, and I'm self-deprecating, and I'm talking about the fact that there's other people that are better than me, and I don't deserve these prices, and I might think that I'm doing all great things, and that someone's going to really truly warm to me and want to give me their money, whereas in reality what I might be doing is painting a very clear picture for the person I've just met of, I don't believe in myself, but I want you to believe in me, and then I'm going to take your money to help you believe in yourself. And it all doesn't kind of match and fit together very well. And I've absolutely been in this position before. And coaches, through coaching with Tom, Russell and Brinsley, they've helped me work out and recognise and identify when I'm doing this, when I'm playing myself down and, self-deprecation and deliberately playing small, with a lack of self-belief, with low self-worth and low self-confidence. And by really listening to what I'm saying and then playing it back to me and getting very curious with me and saying, I'm curious as to, you said this, how does that sound to you? It enabled me to have these realizations, these massive insights and light bulb moments of, oh my goodness, I am doing that. I am giving people really mixed signals, and I am playing down my own achievements. And in that realization, I am then empowered to be able to say, no, I'm not going to do it like that anymore. I'm going to change. I'm going to talk more confidently about myself. Not because I want to come across as arrogant and cocky, but because I want them to see that I really believe in myself. I really believe in coaching. I really believe in my product. And I believe that I should be charged, I should be paid a fair amount for it because it's worth it. I am worth it. Hoorah! I'm sure you get the idea from there. So having my self-worth elevated in that process of that realization of hearing myself talk and then a coach hearing it, reflecting it back to me, rather than my self-talk, my internal critic, all just remaining in my head like it did for the 20 odd years prior to me receiving coaching. My self-talk was all in my head, and I didn't necessarily know how I was coming across, and the vibes I was giving off, and the first impression I was making on people. I just muddled through, which served me well to a point, but coaching enabled me to accelerate my process, accelerate my progress, and create a more fulfilling life, which I am now living. Still with lots to learn and lots more work to do. I always describe myself as a work in progress, and I believe that the work will never be entirely done, because what fun would that be? So that was number 2 of the 5 ways that working with a coach has been so valuable for me. Number 1 was being listened to intently. Number 2 was finding out precisely how and where I'm holding myself back and what to do about it. And number 3 is finding out about my verbal and physical cues. So I won't spend too much time on this one, but as I mentioned earlier, having that sort of bent over body language as though you're hiding away, the submissive tendencies of talking quietly, hesitating and second guessing myself and looking away with my resisting eye contact, and repeatedly apologising. I'm sorry, I've forgotten this. I'm sorry, I've forgotten my notes. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And being embarrassed, I'm embarrassed to say, I'm sorry to say that, I did this, and I'm really embarrassed that I pitched my services and it was a terrible pitch, and then I feel so bad that I asked for money, and then it got really awkward, and they said he couldn't afford it, and I was relieved, and I couldn't wait to get out of that room. And finding out about the verbal and physical cues in that situation, that example I gave, can be really helpful, as by changing our body language, the way we sit, the way we speak, and the way we hold ourselves, if we're stood up straight and we're breathing and speaking clearly from the core rather than bent over and speaking very quietly and looking like we're trying to hide and as though we'd rather not be seen and that we're really uncomfortable in our own skin, by having a coach point out and reflect on some of those behaviours and tendencies, that can be super valuable to be able to change them. As when we're aware of something, we can then do something about it, but before we're aware of it, we may never become aware of it and then never be able to do anything about it. And choosing not to change something is still an acceptable course of action. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Rome wasn't built in a day. We're not trying to boil the oceans, but what we're trying to do is cultivate that additional awareness so that you know how you're coming across and you know some of your gifts. I'm going to come on to that in a minute. And also some of your growing edges where there's opportunities for improvement, as it's all a learning journey and every day's a school day. So number 3 was finding out about my verbal and physical cues, the way I hold myself, the way I introduce myself, the way I speak, and the way I sit and stand. So number 4 of the value of working with a coach is having someone to share my wins with. So very often you're building a new business or you're solo traveling, you have a fantastic day, you've just done something you've never done before, you've got a new client, or you've gone out there and you've taken your posters to the local shop and you've asked and they've said yes, you can put one in the window, and you've had a huge win and it feels amazing, and there's no one to tell about it. Or you wait for your partner to come home, you tell your partner, you tell your friends and your family, and they're really pleased for you. That's great. Well done, David. But that's as far as it goes, and sometimes it can be a little bit of a shallow victory, and it can feel a little sort of disheartening, and people are pleased for you and you're pleased as well. But the magic of coaching is when you have someone who you've spoken in depth about this challenge that you're working on, the fact that you want to market and advertise yourself but you don't know where to start, and you're struggling with social media, and you are just kind of a little bit in your head. You've had a deep conversation about what's going on, and you've figured out a course of action. You've made a plan for, I'm going to go away, I'm going to design these posters, and I'm going to take them to the shops and put them up. And then you agree with your coach, I'm going to take this action, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it by our next session next month. And then come the next session, you're able to say, in my case, Russell, I went and did the thing. I designed the posters, and I didn't just put it in one shop window. I put it in 10. And I felt fantastic. And then your coach is able, in my case, Russell was able to sit with me and say, wow, David, how are you feeling? How does that feel? And I'm able to say, amazing, brilliant, it's another win. I'm racking up the wins now. I'm building momentum. I'm smashing it. I'm making progress. I'm doing the things that I always feared to do. And it wasn't half as scary as I thought it was going to be. Russell, I am loving life. And we were able to have a high five and to celebrate and a handshake and to have a coffee and cheers with the coffee together to say, look at how far you've come. Look at your progress. Look at what you're achieving and doing now. And then, of course, to move on to, so what's next? If this is what you've done now, this is what you're clearly capable of, what are you going to do about it next? What town or city are you going to put your posters in next? What social media posts are you going to do about it? How are you going to continue to market yourself and continue to build this fantastic positive momentum that you've just built? And how are we going to steer this momentum, steer this ship that we're now hurtling along the ocean in the right direction to ensure that we remain on track and on course? But hearing my achievements reflected back to me, it's been so incredibly empowering, especially in the moments where you meet up and things are going badly and it's been a shit month and you're struggling and you screwed up your pitch, and maybe one client, it didn't work out in the end, and then they didn't come and they missed a session, and you got all in your head and you're feeling rubbish and the weather's crap and you've been under the weather, and for someone to be able to remind you, but look how far you've come, despite the fact you're feeling crap, despite the fact you're struggling and encountering obstacle and challenge after challenge, look what you've done so far, look what you've built, look where you're going, and look where you've come from. Because Russell was the man who believed in me and believes in me when sometimes I don't believe in myself. And that makes paying for Russell, investing in that coaching, invaluable, priceless even, because you cannot put a price tag on that self-belief and that self-worth of having my own self-belief topped up with Russell's belief in me. And it's not a dumbfounded belief, because it's a belief based on everything I've done so far and the work we've done together over the last 5 years and how far we've come and the obstacles we've encountered again and again and again and how we've overcome them. And that's why I also love being a coach for my clients, is slightly off topic, but is being able to see the strengths in other people and realise what they're truly capable of and remind them of it. particularly when they're feeling at their worst, when they're feeling crap and having a crap month, and profits are low, or indeed their business is making a loss that month, and being able to show them this is not forever, and you've had these lows in your life before, and you've also had massive highs, and like the stock market, what goes up must come down, what goes down must come back up. It's a roller coaster, and the chances are, by keeping going and keeping planting more and more seeds, at some point you're going to be able to reap the harvest of the seeds you've planted. And helping people stay on track and helping them maintain that self-belief when perhaps their self-belief reserves are lower or completely depleted, as I have found several times in my life. Building a new business, starting a new venture, going solo traveling for the first time, changing your career. There's moments where you doubt yourself. There's moments where you feel like you're making a mistake. And there's moments where you feel like you're not good enough and that you're a failure. They're inevitable whenever you try doing something new for the first time. And self-belief is really important. And having someone else who can help you top up that self-belief, a bit like willpower, it can be depleted at times, is invaluable. Number 5, moving on to the last the last of 5 ways in which working with a coach has been so valuable for me. Number 5 is speaking to someone who's been there, done that, and here's the key one, felt like that before. So the power of realizing, as I said earlier, that it's not just me, that it happens for, to, and by others as well. And the power of sharing my problems, challenges, and feelings, and then not feeling guilty for offloading them onto someone, for not feeling guilty for having 20 minutes of rapid fire. This is shit, that's shit, and the other's shit. This has been a totally shit month, and I'm really frustrated, and this is how it feels, and this is how it looks, and this is what's going on for me, and I am beside myself with it. And being able to really vent and offload onto someone who can then do something constructive with what you've just said, and isn't just drained and depleted, and doesn't just ask you, well, why are you bothering? Why don't you just give up and get a full-time job like everybody else? Someone in contrast to that who is able to say, and what have you achieved this month? What have you learnt from these things? Clearly, you've got these results, which in this case has been 3 failures in a row. So how do we change our approach in order to get different results next month? So to ensure that we're not having this same conversation again. So it's someone who helps you literally pivot from being completely frustrated, downhearted and drained back to 90 degrees, back to on track, motivated, enthusiastic and clear and literally ready to go again, like that mental and physical reset of having that conversation with someone who's been there before and who can say, do you know, I've had this, I've felt like that before, I've had shit months with my business, I've been really unhappy in my career, I've been desperate to leave it all behind and go travelling, or I've been on a trip, an extended solo travel trip, and then had a crushing low where I've felt a lack of purpose and a lack of self-belief, and I've thought, what is all this for? What's the point in all this? Why am I here? I need to be back at home, but I don't want to be back at home, and be all these conflicted thoughts. Someone who's been there and felt like that before, to help you realise that it's not just you, and as my mother always says, this too shall pass. The highs will pass, but the lows will pass as well. The key thing is learning to ride the wave rather than be caught up in it and drown in the sea, to use a cliched analogy there. So I once heard that a gentle wind in the right direction is better than a strong pair of oars. I believe it was Lao Tzu. But the key thing there being that the right words and the right questions asked at the right time, in the right way, by the right person, can be just what you need to get off that one-way boat ride up shit creek, back on course, heading in the right direction again, back in the mainstream, racking up the wins and enjoying life and getting fulfillment from what it is that you do for a living, getting fulfillment from your relationships, feeling healthy, feeling well. Because all these topics, relationships, health, my career, finances, they're all in scope of coaching. Nothing's out of scope, and I've talked about them all with my various coaches, and it's always been super helpful initially to get them off my chest, and then even more helpful to have a positive, future-focused, proactive conversation about what I can then do with these thoughts and feelings and experiences that I'm having. So number 5 was speaking with someone who's been there, done that and felt that, and sharing my problem and challenges and my feelings with someone who is ideally placed to coach me through it. They're not listening to me because they have to. They're listening to me because they want to. They love it. It's their chosen career in life, and I can tell you now, you don't choose it for money because it's an extremely difficult career and the money is a long time in coming, but the fulfillment of seeing someone have those insights, those moments of realization, those light bulb moments when you see them go, yes, that's what it is. I now understand. I now see why I'm feeling like I'm feeling, and I now know what I need to go and do, and I'm going to go and do it, and then I'll see you in a fortnight and we'll discuss how it went. That process is so, I am literally addicted to it. It's fantastic to see, and it's fantastic to facilitate, and it's an honour to work with people and to be a client of Russell's and to do the work with clients that Russell does with me. So I sometimes say that, you know, working with me, you get the benefit of working with lots of coaches because I've been coached by so many, and my favourite bits of all of their coaching I've actually incorporated into my coaching as well. So in summary, coaching has enabled me to get past what's holding me back for all of these years, and totally and truly and genuinely believe in myself and trust myself, and then muster up the courage, the clarity and the confidence to go out and pursue what it is that I really want, unstoppably, without hesitation, without holding back, because we have one life and it's incredibly short and fragile. And I believe that fulfillment is available and accessible to all of us, but it does come with a cost of entry, which is seeking discomfort, facing the conversations we don't want to have, doing the actions that are painful and hard and difficult, being vulnerable in front of groups of strangers, putting ourselves out there and learning all these new skills of sales and marketing and coaching and whatever it is you're choosing to do. But it's so entirely worth it, because the more you do it, the more you realise what you are truly capable of. You realise your full potential, and you realise that you don't need to keep playing so small. And you can play big. And that success is more accessible and closer than you believe it is. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.
The Solo Coach Podcast.